Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're just going to wait 1 minute to let people have time to drift in. Hey, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone, from whatever time zone that you are in the world. We really appreciate your interest in the LARB Publishing Workshop, and I'm very excited to tell you all about it. My name is Lindsay Wright. I am the Director of Educational Programs at the Los Angeles Review of Books. Really thrilled to be here to talk about a program that's very near and dear to my heart now. I'm the director of the Publishing Workshop, as well as some of our other educational programming here at LARB. I'm joined here today by my wonderful colleague, Irene Yoon, who is the executive director of the Los Angeles Review of Books and joined LARB actually initially to head up the publishing workshop. So it's also a program that she cares about very deeply. So we're really thrilled to tell you all about our ninth annual publishing workshop today. So as we get started, we're going to tell you about the history of the program, its mission, go over the program on a day-to-day basis, who our speakers are, what you can expect to get out of this program, and also the application process. Then I'm going to introduce two of our alumni who have come back to talk about their experience and to answer any of your questions, as well as an intern from last year who is returning to the publishing workshop this summer to be the managing editor of our summer journal issue, our literary magazine that we will be publishing during the publishing workshop. And I'm also joined by our intern, Zara Karoma, who's from UC Berkeley, and will be with us this spring through this summer. So if you're in the publishing workshop, you will be meeting her during the workshop as well. So to begin with, I want to ask Irene to tell us a little bit about the Los Angeles Review of Books for those of you who are not familiar with us as an organization. So Irene.
Thanks, Lindsay. And thank you everybody for joining us today. As Lindsay mentioned, I first came to LAR back in 2018 to help run this program, and it is really something that I feel like is so special and so important to both, I think, both of us as people with vested interest in this particular program, but also I think to the organization as a whole. So just by way of background, I think for those of you who aren't super familiar with what the Los Angeles Review of Books does or is, we were founded back in 2011 as an online Tumblr page actually dedicated to kind of keeping the spirit of long form book reviews and conversation around, both new and older publications alive. We were founded in a moment where a lot of major newspaper book review supplements were folding. We were seeing kind of a diminishment of conversation um, around books, around things that took longer than the length of a tweet or even a tweet thread, to unpack and engage with. And so the idea was really to try and keep that conversation going and to make it as accessible as possible. So we've been paywall free ever since our founding back in 2011. From that Tumblr page where we were just posting, one article a day, run entirely by a staff of volunteers. We've grown to encompass our online magazine, which publishes 2 to 3 pieces daily, a weekly podcast that we have also that airs every week on local station KPFK and on our site. Events programming, a membership program that really helps sustain the work that we do and make sure that we're able to keep it free and accessible to our readers worldwide. And of course, the publishing workshop, which we started back in 2017 on the USC campus, with an eye towards the same mission, really, but thinking about it from the kind of earlier end of it, right? Like, how do we keep conversation going, but also how do we shape conversation in meaningful ways moving forward? And I think for us as an organization, really identifying the beginning of people's careers, right, as a really an important piece of that puzzle, right? Who gets to be the people who are making the decisions about what to publish and who to publish? Who's there in the room as decisions about how books are marketed, get made? How are these conversations happening, and who's available to be part of them? And we saw what I think has been kind of the truisms about the publishing industry for such a long time that, so much of it was like located in New York City that required people who were able to afford to move to New York City on an unpaid or very low paying internship, or who had legacy connections. And the effects of that, I think, we've seen with a number of recent studies, including the diversity baseline study that the children's book publisher Lee and Low have been doing since 2016, that has had a pretty detrimental effect on who gets to be in the rooms, right, making these calls, and providing the kind of expertise to shape um, what constitutes a kind of publishing output, and the books that we get to read and the magazines that we get to read on the day to day. So we built this program with an idea of, one, trying to make access to people who are working in the industry, make access to this knowledge and to those connections and to those networks and to those skills much more accessible to students from all across the country, not just in New York City, right? From students who are coming from a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds, right? We really wanted to emphasize accessibility by partnering with various institutions to create scholarships, by fundraising year round to try and make financial aid possible, and by doing what we could to design a program, which Lindsay will talk about much more in depth, right? That would allow students who are coming from a wide range of places to join us and to benefit from the program, and to make the kinds of connections and build the kinds of skills that they could really use as a springboard into careers in publishing, not just in New York City, not just at the Big Five, although of course we have representation of those too, but really, highlighting the really fabulous work that's happening across the country with smaller presses, independent presses, university presses, and magazines that are doing really innovative work actually, and serving their local communities as well. So that's a little bit about the kind of history and context in which the workshop came up. As I mentioned, we started off as an in-person program actually at USC for the first 3 years. Come 2020, a lot of things changed as they did for the world over. And we moved online to accommodate, obviously the pandemic lockdown, but had found actually that it really did help us further our mission of accessibility, and help us maintain, our commitments to our fellows, and also bring in some really incredible speakers who are doing awesome work all across the country and globe. Actually, I think we have occasionally some international fellows and speakers alike. So anyway, that's a little bit about LARB, about the program. I'm happy to answer any questions about those things, but otherwise I will turn it over to you, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene. Wonderful. So, Zara, could you go ahead and thank you for to share the screen? And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the day-to-day work of the publishing workshop, what you'll be doing, and also who our speakers are, and then the application process. So first of all, who are our speakers? So we invite representatives from over 50 organizations, magazines, presses, also literary nonprofits, new media such as people who are working on audiobooks or podcasting or in Hollywood with adaptation, so that you get a really broad overview of the whole industry and the way that all the parts work together. So, of course, we will have people from what are called the Big Five. These are the large publishers located in New York City. They are conglomerations, so they have something like Penguin Random House has bought many small presses and brought them into one large corporate structure. So, for example, we'll have people from Penguin Random House. We'll have people from Riverhead Books, which is an imprint that is a more literary imprint that belongs to the Penguin Random House ecosystem. Kokila also is a small children's book publishing press, but it belongs to Penguin Random House, or Farrar, Straus and Giroux, which is part of Macmillan. We will have independent presses. This is very important to us at LARB because we love to see publishing flourishing all over the United States. So we will have Grey Wolf Press and Milkweed Editions, two wonderful small independent presses that are located in Minnesota. Transit Books, a publisher of works in translation, which is in San Francisco. Red Hen Press, which is a small press in Los Angeles, and many others. So we really like to highlight the fact that you can, of course, move to New York City, which is the hub of publishing in the United States, but it is possible to work all over the United States in a small independent press. And sometimes the work that independent presses are doing can be a little bit more innovative or boundary pushing than we can see from large conglomerations. We'll have academic publishers, so it works very differently than commercial presses. We'll have the director of Princeton University Press will talk about academic publishing and its mission. We'll have somebody who's an associate editor, who's also an alumna of the program from Stanford University Press, talking about the day-to-day work of an academic editor, as well as someone who works on international rights from the University of Texas Press. We also will be featuring magazines throughout the program. So we'll have nonprofit magazines such as the Paris Review. We will have an academic literary magazine, the Georgia Review, which is a literary magazine, but it's housed within the University of Georgia. eFlux Journal, which is an art magazine that's part of a larger nonprofit that really tries to support the arts in New York City. Of course, members of our own staff at the Los Angeles Review of Books will be doing a lot of workshops on the work of academic editing, and also marketing and all sorts of other parts of things that go into the production of a magazine. New media, so this is a broad term, but it basically refers to anything that is outside of print or digital publishing. So we have people from Penguin Random House Audio who will talk about how audiobooks are produced. We will have some of our podcast hosts from the LARB Radio Hour talking about how to create a literary podcast. And we'll have some book scouts and representatives from Hollywood who will talk about how they go about acquiring books or selling books to companies like Netflix or Amazon. And we'll also have literary nonprofits who are doing really interesting work to bring literature to underserved populations. So the Penn Faulkner Foundation, which both gives an award and has events in Washington, D.C., but also has a wonderful program that brings authors and books into schools throughout the D.C. metro area. Words Uncaged is an organization that helps incarcerated people to publish their own writing and to make their own magazines. And the Asian American Writers Workshop, which is an advocacy group as well as a magazine that sponsors events and really tries to foster the Asian American writing community. So that's a general overview of who our speakers are. And within each of these categories, we will have people who represent all of the different jobs and career paths that are open to you. One thing that I find really interesting about this program and about publishing in general is that most people, when they think about going into publishing, immediately think about editing, because that's the thing that we think about when we think about what it means to be a publisher. So most people come in thinking, oh, I'm really only interested in editing. And then you start to hear from people who work in all the different parts of the organization, such as marketing and publicity or international rights, or the people who go out and create events with bookstores or literary festivals, or the people who help to sell the books to bookstores. And you realize how many truly creative and interesting careers there are within the industry as a whole. And so I've seen many people go in thinking I want to be an editor, and then they realize, you know what, actually the work that marketing does is so creative and allows me to use many different aspects of myself, my ability to have an eye on design, my ability to be a writer, to make a coherent argument, to make a compelling argument, perhaps my desire to work more closely with groups of people. So it's very interesting to see how people's ideas about publishing change over the course of the workshop. And of course, we do have many people who do ultimately choose to become editors as well. Okay, we can go to the next slide, sorry. Okay, so here's what the schedule is like. This is a 5-week program. It's a very intensive program. We start at 9 a.m. and we end at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And in the morning, we have 2 lectures and discussions. So we'll hear from 2 different representatives of the magazine and book publishing. So for example, on this day, we would hear from Katie Dublinsky, who's an associate publisher at Grey Wolf Press, a wonderful press in Minnesota, as I mentioned before. Then we'll take a break. And then we would hear from an agent talking about the work that agents do to help their writers both negotiate with publishers, but also a lot of the editorial work that agents are now doing. And within these talks, we'll, of course, save lots of time for our fellows to ask questions, to make sure that they get all of the things answered that they want. Then we'll have lunch and office hours. And this is a really important part of our program, that everyone who's a fellow gets to sign up for a one-on-one meeting. It's a very short meeting, but it's a chance to talk with somebody in the industry and to make an initial connection. So you usually get to meet with at least 5 people during the course of the workshop. And this is a chance, of course, to ask more questions if you have more questions, but more importantly, to make that initial contact. So that later, if you choose to, you could follow up with that person over email. You could even ask them if you wanted to really get to know more about their job or more about the press or the magazine or the organization they worked with for, you could ask for a 10-minute Zoom coffee. It's very helpful to start building up your network of people that you know within publishing, so that if perchance there was a job that opened up at that organization in a few months or a year, you could write in your cover letter, I had this wonderful conversation with Katie Dublinsky, and I really enjoyed what she had to say about Grey Wolf's editorial process or something. That really helps to get your application moved to the top of what can be, hundreds of applications for every job. Then we will have 3 days a week, we will have the magazine and book track, which I'll talk about more later, or we would have a professional development session where we would talk about how to write a resume or a cover letter that is specific for the job that you're applying for in publishing. So we can go to the next slide. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention first is that all of our talks are recorded. So we do know that it may not be possible for you to be there every single session, that you may have other things, job, academic work that you're on a deadline for, family obligations. So if you do have to miss any part of the workshop, you can watch the recording at a later date. And we make those recordings available for the year after the workshop, also so that you can go back later if you do get a job interview, or you just want to refresh your memory about something that was covered in the workshop, that you can go back and watch that. So that's also a very important part of our mission of accessibility, that we want you to be able to be there as much as possible in person. That's the way you get the most out of the program, if you're able to be there to ask questions, to interact with other fellows, to interact with our staff. But we do know that you may have to have a few sometimes in which you just can't make it because you have other things going on, and you will be able to catch up with the program. So that's one of the benefits of being an online program. So the practical tracks are these afternoon sessions on either book or magazine production. And these are a chance to not just hear about the work, but to start to do it yourself in these exercises. And so you can choose between magazine and book track. You can't do both, unfortunately. However, since everything is recorded, if, for example, you were in the magazine track and you were really interested in what the book track was doing, you could watch those videos at a later date, and vice versa. So the magazine track is an intensive program in which you publish an issue of our official magazine of the workshop, which is also an official channel of the Los Angeles Review of Books. It's called publab.org. And every summer we publish the writing of our fellows and alumni. So we will choose with an editorial board before the workshop starts about 20-ish pieces that we're going to work on in the magazine track. And everyone in that track will take on a role in the masthead, or actually 2 roles. So developmental editor, copy editor, art production is the first part of that track. And then everyone will be either on the marketing team, where you'll do social marketing, working with our director of social marketing at LARB, or you will be doing production. So looking at how to do digital production, how to make sure the images show up in a beautiful way. And then we publish it at the end of the workshop, which is a wonderful way to conclude. And everyone in the workshop can read the work that the writers have done and the hard work that everyone on that team has done. So that is a more intensive part of the program. So we do ask that anyone who wants to sign up for the magazine track be willing to commit to do some work outside of the hours of the workshop, because if you are assigned to be a developmental editor, you will be meeting probably with your writer You may be meeting with in consultation with our faculty leader, Jonathan Han, who's the managing editor of Sierra Magazine. And you'll be doing a lot of those kind of meetings and works that will need to be taking place outside of the workshop. The book track is more of a track in which you look at the different steps that go into book production. You can't really publish a book in 5 weeks. There's a reason that it takes 2 years. So this is really a chance to practice some of the skills that go into all the different steps of book production. So things like how do you write a reader's report if you are a like an editorial report if you are an assistant editor, and that's the sort of summary and your recommendations about this manuscript. How do you give comments to a writer? How do you do the art production, the cover design, what goes into that process? How do you write a marketing plan and a publicity letter that might go out to podcasts or magazines or newspapers? And then it ends with a sales conference in which each group that's working on a manuscript um, will then present to the workshop as a whole, and we get to see all of the work that you've done. So that's the practical tracks. And then next. Okay, how to apply. So the applications are due on April 1st. And it is a pretty simple application process. There's a form that we ask that you fill out just with some basic information about yourself. We ask that you upload a resume or CV, and then the personal statement, which is just a one-page cover letter, similar to what you would use to apply for a graduate program or a job. And this is the most important part of the application for me. The personal statement just tells us why you're motivated to apply for this workshop. So what do you hope to get out of the workshop? What kind of career do you see for yourself within publishing? What is your interest in publishing? Who are the voices that you hope to uplift through your work as a publisher, as a potential publisher? And a little bit about your background and what you're bringing into this program. If you have graduated within the past 5 years or you are a current student, we would ask that you provide a transcript. This can be an unofficial transcript, that's fine. If you have graduated more than 5 years ago, you don't need to give us a transcript. That's fine. There's an optional work sample, and I do want to stress that this is optional. We don't require it, and we don't hold it against you if you don't have any experience yet in publishing. But if you have had some experience, and this can include university magazine publishing, for example, if you've worked on a college newspaper or literary magazine, that's fine. So it'd be a work sample of up to 25 pages. So if you have done some editorial work, you could include like an essay that you've edited. If you've done art production, you could include some images that you've worked on, or social media. You could just take some screenshots of some of the social media posts that you've done. We do provide financial aid. So we have fellowship partnerships with about 13 universities and organizations. If you have any questions about whether your university is included in our fellowship partnership, feel free to reach out to me. So we also provide partial financial aid through our own resources. So if you do think that you need some aid in order to be able to access this program, we ask that you provide either a FAFSA or a tax return, so the 1090 or the international equivalent, as well as a statement of need. This is about, up to one page, explaining your financial situation as clearly as you can. At the end, once we review all of our applications, when we go to make our financial aid offers, we will look at all of this and try to distribute our aid in a way that is most equitable. So all of our resources that we have, we'll try to figure out how we can distribute it in a way that would be most helpful to all of our applicants, because we want people to be able to attend this program regardless of financial need. So again, applications are due April 1st. If you have any questions or issues with the application, please do reach out to me. You can reach me at Lindsay at LA Review of Books or Publishing Workshop at LA Review of Books. So with that, I would love to actually introduce two of our alumni who are here today, and our intern from last year who'll be returning as a faculty member today. So Livia Lima and Sophia Closter and Francis Ruiz. Hello. Livia Lima was an alumna in 2022, And she has continued to work with us at the LARB Publishing Workshop as the workshop coordinator for the past 2 years. And she is now returning to Brazil, where she is from, to take up a position as an editor at a scientific magazine that is part of a large organization. So we're really thrilled for Livia. Very sad that we will be missing her this next summer, but it's wonderful that she's able to join us today. Sophia Kloster was an alumna in 2023, and she now works for Hachette as an assistant to the Speakers Bureau and also works within the marketing department at Hachette. And it's wonderful to see you too, Sophia. Frances Ruiz was an intern through the UC Berkeley Art of Writing program last summer. She helped with the magazine track, was really amazingly helpful with producing our Pub Lab. So I've invited her to come back this summer to take up a faculty position. She will be the managing editor who's helping to make sure that all of the different pieces that go into the magazine are accomplished on time so that we can get through in 5 weeks, which is a very fast pace, getting this beautiful magazine out so that everyone can enjoy it. Frances, also at UC Berkeley, has helped to found a magazine at the Center for Undocumented Students, and it's really wonderful that she's able to join us again this summer. So I'm going to ask everyone to tell us a little bit about why you applied for the publishing workshop and what you feel the experience was like, what you got out of it, what was your favorite part of the workshop? Why don't we start? We'll start with Livia and then Sophia and then Francis.
Sure. I applied for the workshop in 2022, and by then I had like almost 10 years work in publishing already, but I was living in the West for the first time, so I applied because I was very much curious to know how was publishing in the West and how I could learn from that for my own experience as well. And I learned so much. And that's really amazing how the workshop can teach you about all the other roles in publishing, because I've been working in editorial positions my whole life, but I had no idea about how much work it goes into marketing, into publicity, and all the other, mindsets and considerations that folks had. So it was really, really nice to get to know this overview about the publishing industry.
I applied in 2023 because I was about to graduate and I was like submitting applications to jobs and I felt like I was kind of feeling in the dark. I didn't really know like what was the right way to do anything and what to say and what to write in cover letters. So I applied to kind of just get more of a understanding of the industry and it really did give me like the language to talk about publishing and the right terms to express what I wanted to do. And I would say my favorite part was just kind of getting a general awareness of how many small presses and big publishing conglomerates and all of the range of everywhere this publishing industry goes.
So in my experience applying to the Art of Writing internship, I'd been looking for publishing internships. I really wanted to get some experience while I was an undergrad, and it was a great opportunity because it offered some compensation, which is something that was really difficult for me to find in publishing internships. So I was happy to find the Art of Writing internship through UC Berkeley. I'm a student there, and find that there was a compensation bit. And I was particularly interested in the publishing workshop because of the educational programming aspect of it. I'd never seen a publishing internship that was related to kind of this educational format of sharing resources or having speakers and having that practical bit of teaching the fellows how it works to work in like magazine publishing or in the book track. So I felt that this was a merging of interests I had. I'd kind of had experience in educational programming and sharing resources in that bit, primarily with organizations at UC Berkeley related to first generation, systemically excluded, low income students. And so I thought it was a great opportunity to merge that interest and that previous experience with my interest for publishing and kind of addressing um, some of the areas of growth, maybe of publishing in terms of equity and inclusion.
Thank you. I'd love to talk a little bit about the online format of this workshop because it is online. It's very intensive. We're on Zoom for a long time. We also have a Slack channel that is very active. So it's the way we communicate with fellows. We all put all of resources, and it's also the way that fellows can get to know each other. So why don't we talk a little bit about what your experience was like trying to create community and to relate to others throughout the workshop, as well as with the speakers, perhaps.
Should start? Okay. Oh, I forgot to say the thing that I most liked about the program. I'm gonna say really quick. It was PubLab. I really enjoyed working for the magazine track, and I recommend everyone who is like willing to learn throughout collaboration. It's really amazing, and I feel like it really touches base on what you asked about making friends or connections. It was throughout PubLab that I made my closest friends from the program because I was really working with them and like, facing challenges with them and how learning how to, you know, do things together. And that was like a way to get closer and to really establish connections. Slack was really helpful as well. Like I used it a lot, Slack, to send direct message to folks that I was like seeing them talking or asking a question. And I was like sending them direct messages, asking for us to have like a virtual coffee or in-person coffee. I also made friends in real life. I was new to Seattle when I came to the program. And today, my closest friends in Seattle came from the program. And that's really something that I will always be grateful for the program.
Sophia, what was your experience like?
Yeah, I really enjoyed having the Slack resource because it was great to be able to both talk to people, but also just kind of see what other people were saying, what other people were sharing resource-wise. So that was really nice. I also think that the pub lab piece of things, like even if you're doing the book track, you can submit something to be published for the magazine, and that gives you another kind of bridge. Oh, the light turned on. I'll turn that on in a second. That gives you another bridge to connect with someone in a different track than you and learn about magazines without doing the magazine track.
Yeah, so in my experience with the interns and kind of the team, we tried to really create different spaces for folks to talk on Slack, for example. So we'll have different community channels. Some will just be related to the track you're in, some will just be with all the fellows, but some will be very specific. So we'll ask fellows to kind of share what kinds of things they're interested in, whether they be related to publishing or not. I know in 2024, we had like an arts and crafts, and people shared what crafts they were working on, and it ranged from like ceramic making to like knitting or crochet, and people were just sending pictures or kind of updating on their projects, and some were publishing focused as well with different people interested in different areas of publishing. So we'll have that area of communication. I think that's a great way to connect with folks who are interested and who have book recommendations or who have craft recommendations, or if you just want to see what folks are up to or ask questions. I know we also had like a pet channel where people just sent cute pictures of their pets. So if you just need a pick me up, you can join that channel and see other people's like cute pets or share your own pets. And then the interns also, we had like a community event. We did like a fellow Jeopardy, which was optional, but I really recommend joining because it was a great way to build community. We just paired people up into kind of like random groups and everyone worked together. And I think it was a really great community building. It was very fun. And it was a nice way to de-stress at the end of, I believe it was the first week on Friday. So like really the end of the first week after you're on Zoom for a very long time, for kind of getting a lot of information that may feel overwhelming, just to have a nice opportunity to get to know people and just do something fun.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Yeah, my favorite part of the program really is the sense of community and the wonderful fellows that I get to meet from all over the world. It's just a marvelous community of people who are of many different age ranges. We've had people from like 21 to 70, late 70s. We have people from all over the world. We have people who are current graduate students, professors who want to start their own magazine, people who have been out working for many years. People are just graduating from college and starting to think about their first job. So it's a really wide range of people, and what we share in common is this passionate interest in publishing and literature and the literary arts and making it accessible to everyone. So thank you so much. I wanted to ask, or maybe to Sophia and Livia, how you think the publishing workshop may have helped you in terms of starting your career. And I say that Livia actually came to the workshop having had of about 10 years experience as an editor in Brazil. So this was her introduction to the US publishing industry, but she already had a lot of experience and has a PhD in media from and cinema from the University of Sao Paulo. I think Sophia, you were just graduating from UCLA, right? And now are working in your first full-time job. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how the workshop may have helped you in your career and your thinking about your career.
I do you want to go first?
Go first, please.
Okay. Um, I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I feel like when I was applying to jobs straight out of college, I didn't know how to describe what I wanted to do and I didn't know how to talk about publishing at all. I was just like, I like books, like please hire me. I want to do whatever. Um, and so like attending this workshop and hearing so many people who are passionate about what they do and who do so many different things gave me kind of concrete examples of things to talk about and things that I was interested in. And I, like a lot of people, first approach like I don't know what publishing is besides editorial, and it kind of made me realize that like there are a lot of other things and I probably wouldn't be suited to editorial. So it gave me both like the awareness of what I was kind of reaching for and like the language to talk about it.
It's a very hard question to answer because I feel like I'm still getting so much of the workshop, like it's something that it goes to publishing and it goes to other careers as well. So I feel like professionally I matured throughout the workshop. Like I've learned a lot how I am in relationship to others, like what are the areas that I'm more interested in develop a career in, and that can be related to published, but it can be related to other things. For example, now I'm teaching at the university level for the first time, and I feel like publishing has been really helpful for that, which is something that we would not think about. But the way that I organize the syllabus for the course, the way that I put together the content, it's really as if I'm like editing a magazine. So I feel like everybody out there who is not like 100% sure if they want to work in publishing, but you're remotely interested in this field, I feel like this workshop has a lot to give to you because you're going to learn about this amazing area that can like help you out in so many other areas that are, connected. So I feel like it's something that goes beyond the work itself, but even like learning how to apply for jobs and how like to communicate and how to network, all that. I've learned a lot throughout the workshop.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you to Livia and to Sophia and to Francis for coming to talk about your experience in the workshop. And I think now we're going to open up for questions. So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. I'm also happy if you want to raise your hand. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have about the program, about the application process. Okay, a question from Olivia. Are full scholarships available? So we try to do our best to offer as much financial aid as we can. Typically, our full scholarships that cover the full $3,000 are usually in partnership with a university. So if you are currently a student and you're not one of our university fellows, we can help you to negotiate if there's any amount that we're not able to cover with your department. We do our best. We are a small literary nonprofit, so we can't usually offer a completely full scholarship unless there's a really extraordinary circumstance, such as someone who is not legally able to work within the United States. But we will do our best to meet you where you are and to offer as much aid as is available to us, depending on, of course, the level of need that we have within any applicant pool. Uh, okay.
And then Ava asked what percentage of applicants are accepted for the program?
It really varies year to year. So I don't want to give a number, but I would say, this is a very self-selecting group because to want to be in publishing, to have heard of the Los Angeles Review of Books, to be motivated to apply, we have really impressive applicants. Mostly what I'm looking for, I'll say, within our application pool is truly a sense that this person is motivated by a career in publishing. So we have a lot of writers who apply, for example, and I would say within any cohort, 99% are also writers. That's also true of the LARB staff. It's true of most people who are in publishing that you have an interest in writing. But this is not a program that is going to help you necessarily get your writing published, although you will learn a lot about how books and pieces and magazines are published that will be helpful for your career, but we're not going to be workshopping your writing. And so we want to know that you are interested in a career specifically within the publishing industry as an editor, an art director, a marketer, publicity person, a career within the industry.
And then Ella asked, is this program also helpful if you're interested in design for publishing, book covers or layouts, or perhaps even marketing?
Yes, absolutely. So we will have, I know right now we'll have the creative director at Milkweed who's going to come and talk about their process of cover designs. I'm really excited about that talk. She hasn't been to the workshop yet. And I love their cover designs. They're so beautiful. Whenever I see them in the bookstore, I'm drawn to them immediately. Within the book track, I think they'll also be discussing cover designs for books. Within the magazine track, you'll hear from LARB's art director, and you'll also be working, if you choose to be an art director, you'll be working in a small team to choose art for each of the pieces. And that also, if you would like, gives you an opportunity, if you know artists, to approach them and see if they might be willing to share a small portfolio of work that we could publish. So there are a lot of opportunities to think about art design. It's not obviously specifically a program about art design. It's one of the many elements that we'll be talking about throughout the program. And marketing, absolutely. We hear from a lot of marketers. So we'll have marketers from the large organizations, as well as, I think we'll have like someone from Penguin, as well as from Deep Vellum, which is a small press for translation, which is located in Texas. So we'll have an opportunity to hear from a wide variety of marketing careers.
All right. And then Ashley wants to know, can you give a little bit more direction on the portfolio element of the application? How should we describe our role on each example included?
Sure. So you could have like just a very short introduction to a piece of just a couple of lines saying, this is a piece which I, edited, and just say what you did to edit it. If were a copy editor, if you could include, if you have it somewhere in your archives, a draft with all of your copy edits on it, that would be ideal. So that we could see that. If you were the art director, you could just sort of show us the images, and and just explain what your role was at the top of the document.
And then Melissa asked, do we include transcripts from the universities we're currently enrolled in, or is it only from institutions we've already graduated from?
Yes, if you are a current student, please do include the transcript. It can be an unofficial transcript of the university that you're currently enrolled in. And we're not really discriminating. We don't care if you get an A minus or an A or a B plus or an A, that's not what we're looking at. We just want to make sure that that you are, in good standing with your university, basically.
Okay. And then Deleta asks, what makes this program different from what we learn in college classes for publishing preparation or other publishing workshops within the US?
Irene, do you want to take this question?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think to start, I guess, with the end of the question in terms of like what makes it different from other publishing workshops, I do think that our emphasis on independent publishing, publishing that's happening across the country, is different than a lot of the other publishing courses that are available that I think are pretty focused on the kind of big five publishing in New York City. I think the emphasis also on both book and magazine and new media publishing is a bit different. I think that a lot of the other courses that you might find do tend to focus specifically on book publishing in particular. I mean, there's a ton of ground to cover, but I think one of the things that we're really excited about here is really providing points of entry on a number of fronts across the publishing industry. And then in terms of college classes for publishing preparation, I guess that might depend on the courses that you're taking. I'm not quite sure like what every course in a college setting might look like on that front. But I do think that one of the things that I really love about the workshop and the fellows that we receive every year is the range of experience that's represented in the Zoom room and the classroom in general. I mean, even here with like Livia and Sophia and Francis. I mean, that's like a really great, I think, example of folks coming with either like a lot of experience, coming straight out of undergrad, coming from other careers and transition. And it just, I think it really like lends to a very dynamic conversation, both with the speakers in the lecture sessions, but also on Slack. In these kind of more informal spaces for conversation and discussion about the publishing industry, and with the office hours too, when you get to speak to the speakers. Then so I think those are a couple of ways that just off the top of my head I can think about it being pretty unique and different from some other comparable programs that you might encounter.
Right. And then Elizabeth wants to know, what are the qualities of an ideal applicant that you look for in personal statements?
Yeah, thank you. So a sense of passion about publishing, I think, is the ideal quality that I look for. So somebody who really has a vision of what they want to accomplish through a career in publishing. So, I could imagine somebody writing about, I feel very passionate about making sure that the lives of children throughout the United States in many different communities are represented in the books that are available to them. Or somebody who says, I'm transitioning out of an academic career in history, and I'd love to find a way to take my scholarship and to find a way to communicate that to a general public. And I'd like to think about working with nonfiction, or I'm really interested in academic publishing, and here's why. So that's really what I look for, is a sense of mission, of passion for the career, because it is a career in which you really do have to have, I think, that sense of motivation, because it's hard to get into. There is sometimes, especially if you go into corporate publishing, there can be an apprenticeship system in which you have to work your way up. So having that sense of commitment, of passion, is the most important thing. So some people, as we said, come in with a lot of experience. They may have edited a journal before, or they may not. They may have never had the experience, but they have this real sense of the kind of literature that they want to see out there in the world, and their own role in which they might be able to help accomplish that. That's what I'm looking for, more than any other quality, I would say. Because we have people who they've been working in a bookstore for the past few years, and then we have people who have a PhD. It's a really wide range of people, and so it's not necessarily your educational background. It's really more that sense of passion and commitment.
And then Hongyu Jasmine asked, is there a page on the website where we can access a list of partnering universities where students may receive scholarships for the LARB workshop, or should we reach out to you individually via email?
Yes, there is a page on the website. It's under our partners, and you'll see a list of universities. If you probably will have received an email from your university if you do have a fellowship available to you. But if you haven't, you can also reach out to me individually through the publishing workshop at LA Review of Books, or through Lindsay at lareviewofbooks.org. And if you don't have, I'd say if you're a graduate student and your university is not currently a partner, we also have had really good luck with our graduate students going to their department and their advisor or their chair, director of graduate studies, and saying, "I really want to do this program. Are there any funds at the university that I might be able to access for summer funding to do this?" So a lot of our fellows have had success, and I'd be happy to talk with you and to help you with that, to send information to your chair if I haven't done so already.
And then Eva writes, I'm not entirely sure I want to do a career in publishing, in part because I know so little about what the day-to-day life is like. That's why I was interested in the workshop to find out more. Do you have any recommendations for someone who's interested in the program, but not yet sure they can make the time commitment for this program? Where can I find out more about life in publishing?
Really good question. I think. I don't know. Do you have any ideas, Irene? Where would you find information about the day-to-day life of publishing? Depends on
Yeah.
the role too, and where you work. Can be very different.
Right. And I would also say that I think that, the this program is actually really helpful on that front. I mean, I guess maybe like Livia and Sophia, you might be able to chime in too on like what your sense of, learning about some of those like nitty-gritty things like was over the course of your time as fellows. But I do think that like, while we're looking for in the application process, I think like a certain like a seriousness about wanting to enter into the publishing industry. I do think that, if you are genuinely interested in learning more about the day to day, this also is a good place to start. Um, I think in terms of our requirements for students being at least graduating seniors or above, I mean, part of that is also um, to keep in mind the fact that like as you make these connections and you meet people who are coming through the program, there are opportunities that you might be able to take advantage of more immediately than not. So I will say that the program is a great place to I think actually learn about the day to day. But if you are really kind of in a more exploratory phase and you're not sure about making the commitment of actually participating in the program to do that, ways to learn more about the day to day. I mean, I'd say, yeah, to Lindsay's point, um, reaching out to people who are working in the industry in areas that you might be interested in and asking for like, hey, can I have like a 10-minute call with you just to chat about what you do? What is your job? Actually, I mean, I think like, I get pitched that periodically, and and I'm happy to chat when I'm able to with people who are interested in learning a little bit more about what we do in the day to day. So I'd say that would also be, something that I would suggest starting out with. Like if you're like, okay, I'm interested in learning more about like what it looks like to be in marketing at a big five or something, or an editor at like a smaller press. Using like LinkedIn to reach out to people, or like looking at some of these publishing houses like websites to figure out like, can I get in touch with somebody and just ask them for like a quick info chat. I think that would be helpful because it is hard to I think get a sense of like a comprehensive day-to-day life because it looks so different depending on what kind of organization you're at and what your role is at a specific place. But I'd say, yeah, come to the publishing workshop, chat with people one-on-one. Those would be, I think, my suggestions for kind of getting that overview.
All right. And then Ines asked, for the work sample, should we only include editorial work or are samples of our own published writing acceptable as well?
So we're not actually so interested in this program with your writing, although we'd love to see it and we'd love to have you submit your writing for PubLab. But what we're more interested in would be work that you've done as someone on a masthead or in a magazine, for example. So if you haven't done that yet, don't worry about it. We don't require it. We really don't discriminate in our application process against people who have no experience in the publishing industry, and you will get that experience by participating in the workshop. So if you haven't yet done work as an editor, copy editor, art director, marketer, just write your personal statement explaining why you're motivated to do this work. And then we hope that you'll submit your writing. And maybe you'll be published in PubLab and have the experience of seeing your work go through all of those stages of the process.
Yes. And then Alexandra asked, are there any resources for those who are interested in the publishing industry but can't pay the fee for the workshop or receive financial aid? They're interested in the industry, but the monetary aspects are just not feasible at the moment.
Yeah, so again, we do try to offer financial aid to everyone who would qualify for financial aid. So I would encourage you to apply anyways, and to see whether we are able to meet your financial need. Of course, we understand if it's just not possible for you right now, in this moment. And I would say probably your best chance would be to do an internship or an apprenticeship at a press or magazine. Some of them are paid, some are not. Some require a big time commitment, some it's only a few hours a week.
All right. And then there's a question from Ray, who's very interested in learning more about how books are physically published, particularly by a small independent press. As an online program, how do you handle sharing these more hands-on skills? Do you cover things such as printers and paper, the more technical components that someone interested in building a small press would likely confront when trying to start their own press?
Yes, we will cover those things. So that is often the job of a managing editor, is to coordinate all of those aspects of publishing. So our managing editor is going to have to find the right printer, figure out the most eco-friendly way to print the magazine, to figure out the cost of the paper, with the supply chain issues that have been coming up over the past few years, to find the right distributor, especially with the closing of small press distribution, which you may have heard about, which is a distribution system that really helped very small presses. So what do you do now? So those will be topics that we talk about throughout the program. Um, Yes, so those definitely will be covered. It's a really important part of publishing that I think many people don't think about. And we will have representatives who have founded their own small press, such as Transit Book. The founder of Transit Book will be talking about how they produce their books, and the challenges that have arisen, especially starting out as a small press that perhaps had one employee, and a volunteer, and then how do you move forward and start to build your press up. So those are definitely topics that are important and that we'll be talking about.
And then Olivia asked, how might you share your work samples as an editor-in-chief of a university literary journal?
So you can share an article or just some snippets of articles that you are particularly proud of, that you helped to shepherd through the process. And just, of course, in your cover letter, and you can, in the beginning of your work sample, just explain I was the editor in chief. And these are some snippets of articles in an issue that I'm particularly proud of on this issue. Wonderful. We're just about out of time, but I wanted to thank everyone for coming and joining us this morning, and especially to Sophia, Olivia, and Francis. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your experience in the workshop. We really appreciate it. I love seeing our alumni. Even after the workshop, I try to keep in touch. We send out job listings, and I have people come and visit in the LARB office. So we really do love to have that community now of hundreds of fellows who are all over the United States and internationally as well, who are working within publishing or who are using the knowledge that they gained in many other industries as well. So we really look forward to reading your applications. If you have any other questions that we didn't get time to address or that you think of later, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will type my email in the chat. And I'm very happy to answer any questions. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day. So thank you so much for joining us.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.